Hello. Welcome to Coffee with Ryan for anybody watching this live or catching the recording somewhere. Of course, we're live on multiple different streams, and I am here with Chris. And I'm going to ask you to tell me your last name again. But he's with Shutter and Strum. And Chris,
I I have
tell me how you would say your last name.
I have heard it pronounced many different ways. Bacavis, Bacavis. Bacavis is great.
Okay, that's how I was going to say it.
Right, perfect.
But Chris, great to see you today. How are you?
Doing really well. We got a nice weather weekend where my wife and son and I are looking to go to the zoo after this, so it should be pretty good as long as it's not windy. So
Nice. Well, I think you're not going to be able to escape the wind, but hopefully you still go.
it's better or worse. Yeah, it's
Right.
Colorado. So yeah.
But yeah. Well, great. Well, tell me about more about Shutter and Strum. I know we talked about it a while back. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. Yeah, you have a piano in your background. I have a drum kit in my background, my son's. But yeah, really, it was
It's a digital piano though.
yes. Well, it is. Yeah, it's not a digital drum set, but you know.
Be fair, or I should say, it's just a background, but to be fair, my real life guitar is right over there.
Okay, very good.
So, anyways.
There you go. Yeah, I see the background now. But yeah, it was essentially for me. I kind of entered the world of education and teaching. It would have been probably about 10 years ago. I started tutoring. I majored in writing and English. And what happened was kind of with all the tutoring stuff, I got into a nice job at a charter high school. It was an alternative high school in the Springs, and pretty much I moved across a couple of positions. One was English, teaching English, and the other after that was music and in dealing with their one-on-one with kids, teaching instruments. We were doing things in the music studio and all that sort of stuff. So it kind of became over the past couple of years. Um, eh, my friend Brian and I, he wasn't here this morning, but I started talking with him a lot about, hey, we're doing this thing. He was doing something related to art and gallery exhibition in the basement of the school. And we really started thinking, hey, we want an opportunity to just kind of not be under the thumb of school admin anymore necessarily, or a district, or not even that, just not being confined anymore to the one school basement. So we couldn't really serve anyone else in the community necessarily unless they were coming to events or there was some special school arrangement outside. So we had this idea a couple of years ago. Let's just kind of open our own space. And so I think we were spending maybe 6 months looking around for buildings that we could lease that were, I guess, in a reasonable area but a reasonable price. And and then we had friends of ours who ran What's Left Records that used to be over on Circle in a building there, and they were moving at the same time into this new building on Platt Avenue in Colorado Springs, and it's a really interesting area just because it's kind of settled uh, in the middle of I guess you could say it's a little bit of a rundown area, but kind of on its way up. But we wanted to get in there before the gentrification really happens so that we can be the individuals who are doing this with, well, yeah. So, I mean, we're situated next to a record store. They have a venue inside too. There are practice spaces downstairs for musicians, artists, that kind of thing that we don't necessarily have under our wing. But the whole upstairs on this side of the building is we have a dedicated art gallery that runs shows every first Friday of the month and then runs through the rest of the month. Then we have a darkroom photography film development room behind that. Then we have a music recording studio and a space for really band practice, instrument instruction, that kind of stuff. And then behind that, we have a photo portrait studio. So a lot of stuff, and then people can print photos back there as well. So
Interesting. Yeah. So, who are you? What are you guys trying to? Who are you trying to reach with
yeah, that's a
the
great.
space?
It's our primary focus had always been, especially in the alternative high school environment. We It was the emphasis on youth, especially. So let's say 12 to 20. I think that's a pretty fair range with some wiggle room there, on either end. Um, but at risk youth, especially, and that's a pretty broad spectrum. I think when we were talking about at risk kids in school, you had to be absent, I think, a minimum of 2 times a month, and that made you at risk for, substance abuse, could be, uh, I guess it could be absences or truancy in general. It could be dropping out. So any of those things, you're at risk for those things if you fit into this certain criteria. Um, and that's really so that at-risk youth. So that encompasses a lot of people. It could be racial minorities. It could be people who, maybe it's a we started partnering with Inside Out Youth Services who have a lot of access for after school programs, right? With LGBTQ plus youth. There are people who are, maybe it's a parent situation or lack of parent situation. It could be, um, transportation issues. So it's all sorts of things where we try to accommodate those, um, exceptionally, great needs throughout the whole city, yeah. So there's a lot of that in El Paso County, and then so it's not just the at-risk youth. I think that's the primary. So if I were to say, probably 80% of that is 80% of what we do is serving that particular sector. But we do things for adults in terms of workshops. We do, events, holding events for people that they can come in. They can rent our space out to host things, whether it's, a party or meetings, all that sort of stuff too. So
Yeah. How have youth responded so far? I know you guys are pretty new, but how have they responded so far to what you guys are doing?
well, yeah, it's been it. I think since the very beginning. Well, so we filed as an LLC in it would have been last May. So, and then we didn't open officially until October last year. But the reception, well, so we were taking donations prior to that, I know, to kind of get everything up and running, just pay the bills. But the reception has always been really positive. Every once in a while, people want to offer, suggestions, and sometimes you either take them with a grain of salt or they're incredible, and we we take them and we incorporate them. But I would say overwhelmingly positive it's been in terms of feedback and just the desire for. I think a lot of people, we wondered at first. Okay, for instance, there's a lot of music studios here, you know, some of them even serve youth, you know, or I mean, Manitou Arts Center, there's the Fine Arts Center, Cottonwood, all of these places kind of have their own, if you will, workshops and things like that. But we really felt like, okay, we struggled at the beginning thinking, is this really just kind of superfluous in this area? Is there really not that need? But then as time went on, we really, as we were starting to write grants and get those opportunities and just partnering with more people, organizations, that kind of thing, people were really expressing, hey, this is something that we really have been needing, and you fill a really big void with this certain stuff. So that it's always encouraging, it's always positive, and that's what I've seen across the board. So
Yeah. So, kind of, what's your like next step for growth?
yeah, I think, at this point, We're partnered with a couple of schools. We have people coming in right now. Like we actually have groups of students, and that was the hardest part at first. It was like we sort of had to go with this field of dreams thing. Like if you build it, they'll come, right? And we just weren't seeing anybody come, but we had the workshops, we had the time availability, we had the partnerships kind of in development, but we didn't quite have the people coming in. But now we're at that stage. So I think it's just continuing to establish and strengthen those partnerships. And it's prior to this, it was really just word of mouth. You know, it was that thing of okay, how do we really get the word out about this, and then get people where they want to bite in terms of actually doing
Sure.
something with us. Um, and that's what we want to do actually is we want to keep so in terms of growth at this point it's we both have part-time jobs outside. It's not our main source of income, if even a source of income right now. It's really just at this point, hey, once we establish those partnerships and we're really solid with several a month where um, we're seeing groups of kids for 5 or 6 hours every week. That in itself is going to pay the bills and more. So that's really where we're at right now. But I think the yeah, just down the pipeline, we have an opportunity with Redline, which is an arts organization, and they have a grant opportunity called Arts in Society, where it's the idea of, hey, okay, here's some sort of an art project. It could be an exhibition, it could be something like that, but you pair it with addressing a very key social issue. So for us, that social issue was intergenerational trauma. So we wanted to, over the next couple of months, start recruiting youth to participate in this photo series, and then we're gonna pair that um, with therapy to deal with that. Just a lot of baggage that's coming into those situations, and being able to express it through art, but to have the therapeutic aspect with someone who's a licensed, clinical therapist coming in. And then we want to have an art exhibition, have a whole gallery showing. I think we're planning it kind of June, July, around that time, where these youth get to showcase their work, all photography. They get to develop their own prints. They get to hang them up themselves and curate everything. And then we want to have a community dialogue around it and have a bunch of events centered around that. So that's in terms of, if I tie that back to growth, it really is the idea of, hey, we want to continue to let the community know that we're here and we're doing what we think is really important and crucial work, whether it's
Mm.
giving youth a voice or access to all these tools that we really emphasize. Brian and I both, this idea of mindfulness and art as a healing vehicle and all this sort of thing, where uh, I know growing up, I think I was fortunate enough to, hey, I had those outlets, but if I had had a program like this that was really dedicated to not just fostering the skills, but also fostering the idea of the professionalism, portfolio building, resume building, all that sort of stuff. That's definitely a side that we want to cater to, and really empower the youth, especially youth participants, so that they're not, because the other alternative obviously is, well, it's substance abuse, it's running away, I don't know, it's crossing state lines to pursue, it could be anything, homelessness, it's just a lot of options that are negative. When if you just equipped a lot of people, I think they would have a lot better opportunities as opposed to doing what they could otherwise do.
Yeah, that's I mean there's a lot of interesting things here, but it
Mm.
sounds like it really, started you're an English teacher. Correct?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
that's what I yeah, that's what I started in,
And
and now yeah, the way it carried over was I was always passionate about I was always
mm,
passionate about music. For me, music was I I always did it in kind of a semi-professional sense. Like I've never made a living off of being a musician. Many of us don't. But when I when I started
you have to put.
teaching
That's
music,
why we have to put. That's why we have to put virtual
yeah,
backgrounds
yeah,
of pianos behind us.
teaching music, in a sense, I was making a living off of well, kind of enabling others to pursue these ideas, and so but it was yeah, teaching English, it was always a passion for me, so songwriting was always huge, lyric writing, and that's the carryover too. I love to incorporate, well, it's almost a little less restrained, um, with songwriting, but you still have parameters. If we talk about English language, for example, there there might be meter rules that I want to follow in a song. There might be rhyme schemes. I could use near rhymes in a song at the end of lines. It's stuff like that that having the English background just gives that a little bit of extra. Uh, how should I say, like support in my mind. Yeah, so I know where I'm coming from.
So yeah, so I think what I started to think, yeah, so I love the word passion. But yeah, so how'd you get these passions? What was the mindset of like combining the passions and then actually going forward with your division of Shutter and Strum?
Well, I think it was the idea. So I mean, in the school environment where I was at community prep school. That was the alternative charter school here, and we had, I would say, under all the leadership I was under, with maybe a very small exception, we had a great deal of freedom in terms of I don't know, I always heard it rumored that in a lot of school districts or at schools, you have to turn in a lesson plan every Sunday for your whole week of classes. You have to be very specific about that. And it wasn't like I didn't have lesson plans, it was that I wasn't micromanaged in that sense where I had to do that every time. So what that gave me was this sense of if I can just come up with anything that I want to do, um, the resources are out there already. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. That was one thing. But the second thing is I have all these tools available and I should just utilize them. I should use them to my advantage. So all it was is that there was kind of this squeeze in terms of, well, there was a big firing, mass firing of I think it was almost 14 of us a couple years ago from the high school. It was just an attendance shortage. So on the count day we didn't have enough people, to justify the staff numbers anymore. So a lot of people were let go. But so I immediately jumped into teaching lessons at another place. I was teaching lessons at Conservatory, Colorado Springs Conservatory, and then I'm still teaching lessons at Colorado Springs School of Rock location. So with Shutter and Strum, it was really just this. I love music. I love the arts. I love these things as a healthy outlet for people, and I really just want access to the kids who I know would benefit from this, and that's what it was all about. So it was kind of a two-way street, right? I wanted access to, classrooms, instructors, organizations, whatever it was that could bring these kids in and they could benefit from what we were doing. But it was the flip side, right? I wanted them to have access as well to be able to do that. Yeah, so it wasn't just, hey, this is confined to one random school in the city. And if you by chance enroll in that school, well, then you can be a part of this. So that was really the motivation, if anything. It was just taking that passion we already had and then extending it to the whole city, the whole county. So
Yeah, so I guess if, thinking about other folks that might be kind of struggling with a passion, um, they're passionate. How do you, how might you advise or encourage someone with passion to accomplish, I don't know, XYZ? Like, what's the first steps?
Well, yeah, I think it depends on what the passion is. I guess
Mm,
what I mean by that is that the more general it is, I think the harder it is to really distill it down to what you can do with it. So, I mean, if I said I was just interested in music broadly, is there a genre I'm interested in particular? Is there a certain aspect of music? Do I want to be a performer? Do I want to be a tour bus driver? Do I want to be hooking up the equipment before shows? I I think it's just finding that specific niche thing that you really want to do. Um, and I think I mean, it's kind of a necessary evil, but it is figuring out, is there any market for this? Is there something, or do I need to create a market for this? Or is there one that already exists so I don't need to reinvent the wheel? Can I join a company, or can I join an organization that does whatever I'm passionate about? Or can I come up with something totally fresh and unexpected that really shifts the landscape? I think that's where it's at. Just so to reiterate that, just distill it down to what is the specific passion. So not just general, but what do you actually like to do with this category of something, right? So if it's teaching too, well, is there a certain subject you like to teach? Is there a certain style of teaching? Do you like big classrooms, small classrooms? All those things kind of came into play when when I was going teaching in general. I started probably 15 years ago. I thought I wanted to go into elementary education, and I didn't end up liking it. But but then it all kind of came full circle, and I ended up, when I was with the conservatory, I was going into elementary classrooms. It was almost every day of the week in the morning, and it was a before school program is what it was. And essentially it had a lot of freedom too. It was just going in and exposing the kids to music in some fashion or another, and giving them some kind of a background, and then getting them to participate in things as a group. And then we had a performance at the end of the whole semester. So it was really just okay. I wanted to go into that elementary ed, and then it shifted, and I kind of just realized I really like English, and I really like editing people's writing. So, um, but then I kind of was exposed to the world of tutoring, but non-directive tutoring. And that's what a lot of writing centers do, where you'll sit down with a paper, and the general thing is don't take a red pen to it. Don't do that. Even though we might have done that when we were in high school, and we were passionate about editing people's papers, So it was this kind of facilitation approach where you almost ask, it's almost like what you're doing in a way. If you were to help me write about this is exactly how I would have done it in a writing center, right? You just ask these kind of leading prompting questions, and then I start to see the insights in what I've already written, or I just get this knowledge that's already in me, and you just help it to come out, right? So that became okay. I really like this kind of style of I don't have to lecture in front of a class in that way. I can just kind of be a little more free and loose, and really give kids the opportunity to do it themselves, and feel way more empowered because they're figuring out stuff. And we've seen that too. We've had we actually it all came full circle, right? And one of our first partners at Shutter and Strum has been Community Prep School, where Brian left a couple of months ago, and then I was fired a couple of years ago, but they still have kids, and they still have kids who need these programs. We're just giving it to them in another way. But kids came in the very first day, and I purposefully didn't set up speakers, monitor speakers in our music studio, right? And they troubleshooted everything. And we're able to figure it out. Not experts, not even intermediate or beginners. They just used their common sense and their technical sense, and they figured out, oh, here's the issue. Why is the audio interface not connecting in the way that it should, right? And they've done other things too, right? Just problem solving and figuring things out without having to sit in the same classroom for 6 months and getting a half a credit
Right.
and maybe attending that class 6 times. It's a lot more so the same passion that would have driven me if I were that age and had those I guess experiences that were available to me. I think it's the same passion that's driving them. So
Yeah.
that's really what drove me to kind of end up here in the way I'm doing it. So
Yeah, so you have this vision of, where your target market is students,
yes.
at-risk students, um, but you kinda have 2 customers, so to say, in regards to, your students, but then also your partners, right?
Yeah, yeah, that is true.
How do you approach, you know, the vision to both of those groups?
Well, yeah, I think if I understand your question right, for the youth in particular, for people who come into the space, they do workshops, they spend time there, whatever it is. The first thing that we always emphasize is you got to build relationships with these people, otherwise they're not gonna they're not gonna trust you at all. Um, or they're going to be way less inclined to actively participate in things. So that I guess that's one thing there. Like we want to build a relationship primarily first, and then everything we do, we don't want to just have this I was going to say out of the box, but I want to say like a prepackaged kind of one size fits all thing that we just foist on every single person. I always have catered, like if I had a music instruction class for instruments, right? I would cater everything to the individual instead of, hey, everybody has to go through the same curriculum. It's not that. Everybody's at a completely different skill level, interest level, whatever it is. So I try to find the things that capture people, that really get them doing what they want to do instead of
Mm.
wasting time on other things.
Sure.
Um, so that's the student piece. For the partner piece, or for the organizations or schools that send them, I really try to make a point of, well, so another one we're partnered with is CASA, court appointed special advocates, and they have kids who are in and out of, it could be foster homes, it could be, it's family situations, and so they have the court appointed person to kind of help them navigate that. So with them, they'll have people who it might be limited schedules, it might be stuff like that. So it works on multiple levels, right? So with a partner like that, we want to make sure to accommodate schedules. We want to make sure to give people access to again the things that they're really wanting. Um, and with schools, I think about things like they're always state standards, district standards. So whether it's Common Core, or I think they call it the 2020 Colorado academic standards now, it's something like that. So it's the idea of, hey, they gotta kind of check all these boxes. So I always make a point of I have it for every workshop we provide, that here's all the state um academic standards that this would fulfill if you were to keep keep youth in this program for say maybe several months. And that's so we constantly trying to provide that, give feedback, get feedback, and try to tweak things as they move along, just in case anything is awry or it's not quite serving the school organization or the students in the way that we would most want. So does that help a little bit? Just to
That's totally great. Yeah, I was also kind of thinking, and you kind of touched on it. Obviously, there's great benefits to students being in your guys' program, whether it's just learning more academics, life skills, um, and those type of things. But yeah, you also kind of had a, uh, what's and you've touched on it a little bit, like what's the benefit to an organization for helping partner with you and helping facilitate getting kids to your program.
well, yeah, there's a number of different things actually. So, well, the big thing is I mean, anymore, we're well aware that schools all over the place, districts, just speaking specifically to schools, they're outsourcing anything and everything that they can. If they can, if they can not have to deal with having staff on site as
Sure.
much as they can. It's so it's kind of in a sense, we've tried to take advantage of that, knowing that, hey, they're gonna do it with somebody. They might as well do it with somebody who we would trust, I think. Like, if we were students or we had students of our own that were going to these places. Well, yeah, so that's the big thing, right? We know that a lot of other places don't necessarily they may teach a skill set, but it may be treated as kind of a one-off thing, right? It's like, well, here's a painting technique that you can learn, but okay, you get through a class or you get through a course or something, and what does it mean for you, right? But I think it's on several levels, right? We know that these types of creative outlets in general, they really help. They either realize that they have these skills and the interests, or they kind of can build on them if they already have those. So it's a positive outlet, really. It's going to reduce their stress levels. It's going to give them just that ability. We always talk about one of the best examples of mindfulness we have is the idea of darkroom film development, and how you have the bath of water and chemicals and if you don't get the measurements so you have to be in this mindset of I'm completely paying attention, I'm completely mindful and in this zone and space right now. If you don't, everything goes wrong. So you have to really slow down with the darkroom environment. You have to slow down, you have to be very intentional about everything you're doing. It's all measurements, it's all the time, you set a timer, it's all that stuff. So just in those acts themselves, or it's picking up an instrument, or it's laying down a vocal track for a thing that you just wrote. All those sorts of things give you, yeah, just the opportunity to you can explore these new forms of expression, and you can really not just develop a better appreciation for that side of things, but also you can heal a little bit through that. You can get through things that you're getting through. But then we also have that piece of we both are really well attuned to the idea of mentorship, relationship building, but specifically through these kind of artistic experiences. So I think it is a thing where, yeah, a lot of students, especially just speaking specifically to students, they'll be in an environment where they they don't have a great deal of confidence, whether it's among their peers or in their home situation or whatever it is. They have a positive self-image. They don't have communication skills in terms of like marketable communication skills. Like they couldn't walk into a place and confidently say, "Hey, I want to work here. Here's what I can give you." Right? Um, so that's a huge thing too. So I mean, giving them the ability to, in a structured environment that's safe, to collaborate with other people, to learn some business sense, to learn how to use these things as really healthy tools for um, getting stuff done, but getting stuff out too. Um, it's this thing of, I really think that it does go back to, yeah, I know personally, both of us, Brian and I both, if we had had access to this as teenagers, we wouldn't have got we wouldn't have gotten sidetracked with a lot of the things we did. You know, Brian was Brian will readily admit too, he's a certified drug addiction counselor now, but he came from drug addiction and substance abuse and all that stuff. He says he's a recovering alcoholic still. So he's been, I think he's 8 or 10 years on, past that now. But he directly relates that to the kids of, hey, I flirted with this for a long time. Not flirted with it, but I actively did it. And I found out that it was a dead end and it doesn't heal me like these things can. So that's what it came around to. Yeah, for me, I was always whether it was I was always interested in some kind of artistic outlet. I got a guitar and a piano. Um, I got a guitar for my birthday when I was 10, right? My dad was really supportive of it. And then my mom wasn't supportive of it. He was just the direct person with that. My mom was supportive of the other. I went into, of all things, there was the Society of Young Magicians, and we put on shows and we got paid. That was my first taste of a paycheck, right? We would put on these shows at a local community center, and they gave us, I kind of vividly remember the first check was like for 70 something dollars, and I thought it was for like 5 hours of work at the most or something like that. So it was pretty good. You're 11 years old, getting this check. So it was kind of cool, that I had those opportunities. But in high school, I was kind of figuring out on my own. I guess that was the advantage that I had. I just figured it out on my own. But had I had something like Shutter and Strum that was giving me direct access all the time, and I could really be part of an art music community, that would have accelerated everything. I would have wasted a little less time, I think. Maybe in my late teens, early 20s. So,
That's neat. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah,
yeah.
I guess as we're kind of coming close to our time, like if there was, I don't want to necessarily say sales pitch, but yeah, if there was like a sales pitch for Shutter and Strum, what would you say?
Well, yeah, in a couple of words, I think that what we provide for everybody, whether it's youth, primarily youth, but for everyone in the city, we we offer what we know are very transformative arts experiences. They're the types of experience that they're going to give you skill sets that you don't have already, where they're going to build on the existing ones. They're going to give you everything you need to be successful in a particular area. Um, there's that thing of, because really overall it doesn't just give you a skill set, but it gives you this self-awareness. You can feel way more positively about your work output because you're a part of a community aspect. I think that's a huge thing with it, is that you're working with people and communicating with people regularly who have been in this world. But this is the world, right? We're constantly, month to month, doing these arts events. They're very well attended, actually. I was shocked in October, um, just because you start out. It's the first show, but it was incredibly well attended, for a first Friday event, because you're competing with the entire city. Um, I guess the entire region, everybody's doing a First Friday. But the support was really overwhelming, and it's been consistently that way since. Very really well attended events. So it's not like a little hole in the wall place that no one is aware of, and you're just kind of getting art instruction. It really is a community arts center in the heart of what's the Nob Hill Arts District in Colorado Springs. We're right diagonal from the Black Sheep, and then we're directly next to a venue, record shop. I mean, we're not. It's not some cheese ball, little shop in the on the side of the road somewhere that you don't want to be, you know, that you don't want to include on your resume, right? We're very, very well established in terms of partnerships with the art community locally, across the country, in both places, right? In terms of arts, visual arts, and the music stuff. So there's also the idea of we have before school, we have during school, we have after school workshops, and what we call workshops, they're really just kind of condensed classes that really give you an opportunity to get things done. And so a lot of them are maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks. They could be a few hours in a single day, but in all these things, film photography, darkroom photography, art gallery curation, art gallery management, songwriting, recording, music performance with instruments, music blended with core subjects like music, math in music, right? Science in music, all those sorts of things. So really unique things that we can offer and have been offering for years. Is just now we have this dedicated space. Anybody can come. And that's the last piece too, to talk about anybody can come. We do have fees for workshops. So individuals could pay it's a range. It kind of depends on what it is. I know things that require equipment and supplies are the more costly of them. Um, but we have things like instrument lessons for 45-minute sessions for 25. That's one of the things listed, right? And then we have things that are a few hours that are maybe double that price, right? So there's that pricing, but there's also the idea of, yeah, when we have school partners or organization partners, that's the ideal because they can pay us for our work and for doing what we do, but the youth or the student participants don't have to pay that, right? They're able to come in and do that way. And but we also have, hey, if you're not under the wing of a school or an organization, we we can offer partial scholarships or full scholarships. We call them scholarships. Really, it's kind of just hey, we can provide you with a code you can check out on our site. Um, if you clearly have a financial need, we don't want anybody to be kept out of this just because you can't pay a fee. That's silly.
Right.
Um, so that's the idea. It's a sliding scale thing, like a lot of places do, up to, hey, we just cover it. Don't worry about it. And that's what the donations have always been for. It's that we can be compensated for the work we're doing, so we're not just volunteering our time, but we want everyone possible to have access to these things.
Well, right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, awesome. Chris, thanks for coming and sharing about Shutter and Strum. And if anybody's watching live or watching the recording, go to shutterandstrum.org. Reach out to Chris and his uh, I don't know, business partner, co-teacher, like
Yeah,
Brian. Reach
business
out to these
partner,
guys.
co-owner, he's all those things,
Yeah,
co-instructor, co-teacher. Yeah, so I would say if anything else, yeah, we have our next exhibition is going to be this Friday, actually, from 5
awesome.
to
Yeah,
9
first Friday.
p.m. From 5 to 9 p.m. at Shutter and Strum. It's 22 2217 East Platte Avenue in Colorado Springs in our Disruptor Gallery. So you walk right in, we got you. But we have two shows going on at the same time, so that's a unique thing we hadn't had yet. And yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Well, yeah, Chris, thank you very much. Yeah, so go to their website, connect with them, um, be involved in something larger than yourself, and connect with students and other people through the arts is a really neat thing. So, Chris, thank you very much for being here. Great to connect with you. Thanks for having coffee.
definitely appreciate it. Hey, thanks.